to this now. The Constitutional Court has ruled that it's illegal for parents to smack their children, saying it violates children's rights. Well, the court upheld the South Gauteng High Court ruling back in 2017 against corporal punishment in the home. Well, for some reaction on this, we'll speak to legal advisor Daniela Ellerbeck from Freedom of Religion South Africa. Ms. Ellerbeck, thank you very much for your time. So you say this sets a dangerous precedent. Why?
Good morning, Courtsey, and thank you for having me on your show. Yes, it does, and it's actually a very disturbing judgment. So perhaps before we explain why it sets a dangerous precedent, let's actually unpack it and say to parents what this actually practically means for them. So in terms of the judgment, the court said that any form of physical discipline is unconstitutional. It said that reasonable and moderate chastisement is illegal. So what this means is any form of discipline, whether or not it's, no matter how mild it is, if it's a slap on the hand, it's illegal. Which means that if you now give your child any form of physical discipline, whether it's a spanking or a slap on the hand, you have just committed the crime of assault, and you have completely and fully opened yourself up to the full criminal justice system. Now, why I say this is disturbing and sets a dangerous precedent is that, firstly, we've just established two principles in law. One, we've established that the state can come into your home, and tell you how to raise your children. And secondly, we've established that for many believers in South Africa who believe that God tells them that they have to physically discipline their children, the state has said to them, okay, we understand that, you can read your scripture this way, but you're not allowed to interpret it that way anymore, and you're definitely not allowed to live it out that way. So what we have seen is that what has happened with this judgment is that there has been a serious erosion of both parental rights, for parents to determine what is in the best interest of their children and for them to raise their children in accordance with their own moral convictions and beliefs. And secondly, we have seen a serious erosion of religious freedom, with the state stepping into the religious realm and telling people, okay, this is how you must live out your faith. And for both of these, there are now penal consequences if you don't.
It's a very interesting one, and it's actually evoked a lot of mixed reaction. People really not sure how to react to this one. Perhaps the interesting question here will be, how will the law enforcement of our country enforce this particular, because it's going to be a very tough one. And children, I mean, if you smack a child, you're not going to be arrested instantaneously unless someone who's much older goes to court and files a charge against you. How do you foresee the enforcement of this one?
Well, I think two things. Firstly, I completely agree with you that enforcement will be difficult because we already have a stretched law enforcement system as it is in this country. And secondly, firstly, we're already burdening a system that is already stretched. And secondly, I would say that, in the judgment, Chief Justice Mogoeng did said that, it's, because the law doesn't bother itself with trivial matters, that's known as the de minimis principle in legal circles, it's unlikely that you will go to jail. But the impact of actually, if someone lays a charge against you at the police station for, physically disciplining your child, never mind that it was mild physical discipline and within the bounds of reasonable and moderateness, which up until yesterday was legal, the police will have to investigate that. It doesn't rule out the possibility that a social worker will probably have to come and do a home investigation and see whether or not it's still safe for your child to live with you. And then, of course, if you are convicted, even if you do not end up going to jail, you now have a criminal record, which stays with you for life. Now, just think about the repercussions on our family units in South Africa, which really are the bedrock of our society, about all of that. So as a parent, if you go for a job interview and you say, okay, yes, I do have a criminal record. Okay, for what? No, I have it for child abuse. What are your job prospects? And And then just the disturbance on the family unit with all those steps, even if you don't end up going to jail, you know?
Yeah.
So what we're really seeing is this judgment is very dangerous, and it's going to have very dire consequences on families. And especially as you pointed out, you know, like the enforcement of it is something that's really up in the air. So we don't know what this is going to look like. We don't know how this is going to be enforced, and we can only assume the worst.
Ooh. It's a very interesting one indeed, and I suspect we're not speaking for the last time. It was a unanimous judgment. Thank you very much for your time. Daniela Ellerbeck is from Freedom of Religion, South Africa.